Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJBrick Podcast. This week on the show, we have Damian Todd, otherwise known by his friends as Obi, as in Obi-Wan. Guys, the force is strong within this one, so stick around for the interview. I'm here with my buddy Gary, the Hammer Hall, and my other buddy, Big Bad Byron Jabara. Gary and Byron are launching their professional wrestling careers next week. Guys, what can the fans look forward to when they come out to the show?
Well, first, since we are both on radio, we're not good looking enough for television. We are going to be wearing masks. But, well, it's hard to pick out who the Hammer is and who is the Big Bad Byron since we're wearing masks. So you're going to have to look closely and see if you can decide who is who.
Okay, you don't have your tattoo named on your back. You don't have your name tattooed on your back, huh?
No, but I do have tap out all the way from the top to the bottom.
Perfect.
But it's covered in hair, so it's hard to see.
Okay.
Yep, we're excited about this professional wrestling debut, and I'm sure it's going to make waves through the community of people who, I can't think of one community that would care.
Well, I know one thing. I know that next week in your debut, it's going to be tough, but I know you guys aren't going to quit. You're going to stick it out, and I imagine your first year of professional wrestling would be pretty difficult. It would be awesome if there was a resource out there that could help you make good decisions and navigate your way through that first year of wrestling, right, guys?
That would be good.
What is there something out there like that for jiu-jitsu?
I don't know about this. What are you talking about? I think Gary knows about it.
Joe just threw us a great alley-oop. Joe is a black belt in Segway, and we're not talking about the Segway that mall cops use. But Joe is talking about Byron's audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. We have a link to it on our show notes. $11.99 is all it costs, and it gives you 2.5 hours of content. Byron helping you through your first year. It's kind of like this podcast of Byron talking to you, and helping you out through that first journey. He goes into many different topics that you're going to run into your first year, whether or not you should enter a tournament, what moves you should work on. A big one, I think, is, schools, finding the right fit of schools. And I think that's a big thing. A lot of areas have multiple schools, and finding a school that really fits you, your personality, finding an instructor as your, teaching style that makes it more conducive to you is definitely going to help you stick with it in the long run. So check it out. Like I said, we have a link to it in the show notes. Maybe someday Byron will come out with one about professional wrestling, but we haven't made it through our first year. We haven't made it through our first week in professional wrestling, but we did make it through our first year in jiu-jitsu. So we are Byron is kind of an expert.
Yeah, the book is designed to help you get through that year. It's $11.99. There'll be a link in the show notes. And if I were to make a book about professional wrestling and how to get through that, I don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess same, finding the right place to train, and then what to expect when you walk in the door, and then how to talk to and treat your training partners, and what techniques you need to learn to wrestle at a proficient level, like the fundamentals, and how not to overtrain, because that could be a thing where you get injured. And man, so my whole thing, Gary, I hate to disappoint you. I may not be able to make the debut because I'm not backing out. But slight injury to my, I don't know what to say.
Patella tendon.
The upside of my under knee is slightly injured, and Gary.
Oh, thanks. So you're going to have us. We're in a tag team match.
Oh, we're on the same team?
I have to take on. Yeah, we're going to wear
I thought
masks.
It was versus.
No, so now I'm going to have to take on 2 individials by myself, which is going to be kind of tough. Nope, it's too late.
I won't. When you go to tag me, I may be a little too far away.
Yeah. Byron, I'll let you know you're not my favorite training partner. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yikes. Well, that's okay. I'll tag Joe instead at the moment. And and see what he has for the off the mat lesson.
Okay, yeah, it is that time of the show. So each week we talk about something we maybe have learned off the mat and how we can apply that to our jiu-jitsu journey. Sometimes we go the other direction with it. If you listen to the last couple episodes, I talked about a fish cop when I was younger and I was a commercial fisherman that he gave me a L. Threatened to take me to jail one time because I did not have my fishing license, and ultimately that was my own fault. We talked a little bit about that episode about taking responsibility for your choices, and then later that cop wrote me a ticket, and I ended up cleaning dirty fish ponds for a week doing community service because I had a few too many pounds of a commercial species for sale, and that's not a good thing. And we talked that episode about what did we talk about on that one? There was a good lesson there. We talked that episode about sticking to routines, because if I'd have stuck to my routine, I wouldn't have been over on my limit. So but I still don't think I deserve that ticket. That cop just gave me a hard time. And this went on for about 10 years. Well, just 6 months ago, guys, my wife came up to me and she said, remember that fish cop? I'm like, yeah, I remember, Jeff. She goes, something I never told you. I guess I didn't think it was all that important. But about 6 months before we started dating, which was about a year before that guy threatened to throw me in jail. She was about 6 months before we started dating. I was dating his little brother.
Man, the plot thickens.
I'm like, so you mean that guy gave me hell for a decade because he was mad that I took his little brother's girlfriend away? Oh man!
I didn't expect a plot twist. Well played. This is great.
So yeah, that is quite a plot twist. But looking at this, what I learned through this actually was, so from the time he first threatened to throw me in jail till when it was done 10 years later, this guy's always hassling me. And so it's not like an obstacle that you can just overcome and then you're done with it. It seemed like every time I turned around, here was this obstacle in the road. And so actually, I started to become very careful about limits when I was running the boats and making sure I was within all my limits. I made sure I got my fishing license the second week in December, so I had it for the following year. Anything that he could hassle us about, small crabs, anything, I got really careful about. Basically, I changed my behavior. I couldn't remove the obstacle, but I changed my behavior so that every time I encountered it, it was easier to get around. And when you think about your jiu-jitsu journey, there's things in our lives that are not negative. And so I don't want to be like calling your kids obstacles, but there are things in your life that will try and get between you and jiu-jitsu. And these things, it's not like you just deal with it once and then you don't deal with it anymore. If you've got 3 or 4 kids, you're going to constantly go through a period of time where you got 2 kids playing 2 sports and you're just busy. You can't get to jiu-jitsu. And then you get past that. And then you get to another point 8 months down the road where you're all jacked up with kids' activities and stuff and you can't get there. Or maybe you're like Gary and you have, you go hard every time you're on the mat and you have some injuries. I know, Gary, you seem to sometimes rehab from one injury to the next. And so it's just a constant obstacle, but you can change behaviors to make these things less damaging to your jiu-jitsu journey. If it's the kids that are always taking your time, figure routines out at home you can do to stay in shape when you can't get on the mats as often as you'd like. Get some mats at home and find a training partner that'll come over and drill with you once a week. If you're injury prone, I think it was Byron that kept a pain journal for a while. I don't know if you still do, Byron, but I imagine that doing something like that will help you to identify what types of activities or techniques are causing you to always hurt your back, and you can change your behavior a little bit, and then that obstacle will become easier to get around every time you encounter it. So don't steal the fish cop's little brother's girlfriend, and change your behaviors to make obstacles easier to overcome. Those are the 2 lessons from episode 297.
I bet a lot of people tuning in right now were expecting BJJBrick and thinking they got on the Young and the Restless when they heard about the fish cop. But if you know Joe and I, we're definitely not young, and Byron's restless. But so that makes no sense whatsoever. But Joe, I like what you were saying there about, we can find time, like you said, find a structure, at home, a routine, get matched for at home where, and find a training partner, maybe drill one day a week, find a way to keep active, keep that heart going, maybe do some yoga, do some strength training or cross train some way. You can always find a little bit of time for that. It seems like a lot of times if I miss jiu-jitsu, it's due to bad planning. I can make excuses if I want, but, you need good planning. I mean, I think of you. One thing you mentioned in there is you were always hassled about your small crabs. And, even having small crabs, you still made it in, found time to train jiu-jitsu. I mean, I guarantee the itching must have been terrible, but you found time to get in. So, I applaud you.
Nothing a little cream here.
Interesting, Gary. You brought the lesson all the way into a big circle, and Joe's not going to be sorrowful. He's not going to lay in his sorrows about anything like that.
You'd never let that rob him of his joy.
Not today or tomorrow.
It sounds like an ABBA song.
Gary, what is the quote of the week?
The quote this week is, "Worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy." And that is by Leo Buscaglia. If anybody noticed how it took me a little while to read the name, if you've listened to a lot of these episodes, these two jokers, the guy with the mask and the guy with the small crabs, they set me up a lot of times. And they put in fake names, like they had one I, the letter I, period, the letter P, period. Last name was Freely, and I didn't catch it. So I said the name really slowly because I thought this could be another setup, especially since Byron threw it in my court. But
that's true.
Once again, worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy. And, so true. And, I can think about myself. I've worried about, stuff that has happened with my family, stuff that has happened, at work, just every day, trials and tribulations. And, basically what it does is it ruins your day. I can worry about stuff that's going to happen a week down the road. And there's many times I have done that. And basically it saps my sorrow, my joy for today, tomorrow, up until whatever I'm worrying about. And then the 99.9% of the time, there was really nothing to worry about. And even if there was, why let this, ruin, my tomorrow, my today? It's not worth it. We want to have joy and fun in life.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. The quote doesn't necessarily have to have a whole lot to do with jiu-jitsu, but I do know some people who worry a lot, and I'm fortunate to not be one of those people. I don't know. Maybe I'm just fortunate with my life situation at the moment, but people worry about a lot of things, and some of the things people choose to worry about are just insignificant. By the time the day's over, whether it went the way you wanted to go or not go, it really didn't matter. It was just so. I try not to worry. I guess it's not even really a thing I have to try very hard to do. I don't worry about a lot of things, but if you spend a lot of time worrying about things like that, it kind of ruins your current moment. And that's no way to live a life full of that's lived to its fullest, worrying about things.
Byron, I think that's really how it does relate to jiu-jitsu when you talk about it ruining that moment. If you apply this to, say, an athlete preparing for his first tournament or something, there's a line between thinking about the tournament and planning and game planning, and then where you get into your irrational fears and your obsession, and that's when you're into worry. And you're right, it ruins this moment. It doesn't just sap you of the joy, it saps you of productivity. It's hard to be getting better at anything when you're preoccupied with negative thoughts and all stressed out. Your stress hormones are through the roof. So, in jiu-jitsu, if you get worried, it will, I think, have a negative effect on your progress.
Good one, Joe.
I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly, Joe. I started interrupting Byron, and I was going to say something basically along the same lines as you right there. I do think people sometimes worry about promotions, whether or not they're due for it, worry about tournaments, even just worry about coming to class, especially newer people. It is awkward and you feel weird out there that you don't know all the moves, and we worry about it. And I got to admit, I did it all the time, and I would show up for class, and by the time I was done, I had a smile on my face, and here I am worrying about something I really didn't need to worry about. I would worry about little things as, if I couldn't do something right, would people laugh at me? That's really kind of how I was when I started. And, I don't think anybody laughed at me, at least in front of me. I know Byron probably did behind my back, but it's, just needless worrying.
Yeah. 1 minute in the white belt Gary's mind. How's my hair? Is that girl looking at me? I hope the coach doesn't call on me. What if I trip?
Though, I was that way. I used to hope that the coach wouldn't call on me. Like, our coach sometimes would be like, okay, hey, you come over here and demonstrate. And I really didn't want that. And, really that is one thing jiu-jitsu has done for me. It's made me a lot more confident. I don't know before I started jiu-jitsu, and I'm not going to say it's because of jiu-jitsu, but, I never public spoke. I have to do that a lot at work now, speak in front of, big groups, different organizations. And, it's not my favorite thing to do, but I don't have any issues with it. And I do think a lot of that has just come through jiu-jitsu. I mean, because I have been put outside my comfort zone so many times that, something like that just doesn't seem as big as it used to be. I think jiu-jitsu has helped me stop worrying about, what's going on and just live in the moment.
You know what the worst thing about being called up to be the practice dummy when the coach is demoing a move? When he says,
pain?
No, well, that can be really bad. But when he says, so then if my opponent frames like this, and you put up a frame and it's not the right one, he's like, no, like this. and then, no, like this.
Yeah, that was one thing I always hated. He'd be like, okay, put the hook in. And I'd put the wrong hook in. He's like, no, this one. And I put it in. He's like, no, you were supposed to go. And I would be all over the board, not knowing what he needed. And I mean, that's what happened. It's a learning process. I mean, your instructor is normally going to have so much more knowledge than you, and a lot of times you're not going to know where it is. But, your instructor's not out there to embarrass you. People aren't laughing at you because, Joe mentioned it. I've mentioned it. We've all been through it, and it's going to happen. But, at the end of the day, everybody's going to pat you on the back and ask you if you had fun and say thank you for training with me.
Yeah, I could remember some of those situations, and it's like, then to get out of this technique, he rolls over. I'm like, how do I roll out of this? I usually like, okay, I'll try. But most jiu-jitsu classes are pretty lighthearted, I think, and if you're able to make a joke about it or whatever. Sometimes I'll be at Fox Fitness, and he'll be like, Byron puts his hook in, and I'll put the wrong hook in on purpose. He's like, no, the other hook. And then I have both hooks in. He's like, take out the hook, and I'll take out both hooks, and then I'll tighten up my choke. Like, sometimes I'll just be ornery, and it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be an enjoyable process. So anyway, yeah, don't worry about things like that. Just have a good time. But if I was doing like a 24-hour roll, I would be a little bit worried about that.
I would definitely be worried about that. Yeah.
Yep. So I'll tell you what, guys, I know you have been worrying about it. So let's bring somebody onto the show that knows what it is like to roll 24 hours. Let's welcome to the show Damian Todd, known by his friends as Obi, as in Obi-Wan. Damian rolled 24 hours to raise money and awareness for suicide. So let's roll the interview.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
I recently appeared on Wheel of Fortune. I found 1 B and 2 J's. After that, I stripped down to my underwear and challenged Pat Sajak to a sumo wrestling match on the wheel. In the strange series of events, Pat Sajak declined the initial challenge, and the game continued. Pat then waited for me to take a pee. That is when Pat pushed me down, thus winning his controversial sumo match.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
I'd like to welcome to the podcast Damian Todd. Damian's a purple belt out of Adelaide, Australia. He came to my attention recently because he did a 24-hour roll-a-thon for suicide awareness, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Damian, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. I actually slept really well last night, believe it or not. That's one of the first nights that I've slept. It's like 2 weeks after the event now, and that was one of the best night's sleep I've ever had, whether it was the wine I had last night or just whatever, just chilling, finally, I guess.
So has it been nicks and dings, bumps and bruises, and being sore that's kept you up, or the disruption to your regular patterns?
Yes to all of the above, I think. Ultimately, injuries, but during the event, absolutely 100%. Mentally fatiguing. Obviously, the build-up and the preparation, preparing for it, not only just trying to get yourself mentally prepared to do such a thing, but also in terms of doing all the administration along with my wife to try and get the thing ready. And then after the physical and mental exhaustion of putting yourself through that 24 hours of grappling was, if you roll, you know how hard that would be. And I can tell you, it was damned hard. It was hard. And I can't remember some of it because it was delirious. I don't remember some of it at all. Yeah, at all.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, before we dive deeper into that, can you give us a brief introduction to who you are, a little bit about your martial arts or combat sports training? And I understand you're a purple belt now. What's led you to this point in your jiu-jitsu?
Sure. So my background ultimately is I'm not Australian, I'm English. I've been here towards 6 years now. I retired from the British One Wing Commandos after 22 years service. And after that time, I moved out to Sweden. I lived in Sweden, northern Sweden, for 2 years, working for an armoured vehicle manufacturer, BAE Systems Hägglunds, which was the Swedish element. And whilst I was there, eventually got to bring a vehicle not only just to Australia, but to lots of different countries around the world and train people in it. And during that time, I met my now wife, and decided to move to Oz. And I'd been here for about, that was October 2013. So I'd been here for about 5 months, and over here they have some really good beers, some really good wineries, and kind of put a bit of weight on. And I'd always been, I would say, very fit, having done bobsleigh and track athletics, decathlon particularly, for a fairly decent level. And I'd always been fit. And so when I got here, I didn't want to be unfit and fat. I wanted to be fit. So I thought, well, I'll do some BJJ. There'll be BJJ here. I've toyed with doing MMA many years ago back in the UK, trained with a couple of guys who were pretty good. One of the guys, a guy called Martin Stapleton, who trained and actually competed on Ultimate Fighter, I think season 8 or 9. I remember which. With him, a couple of others, and kind of started a mini MMA club in one of the last units I was based at, and I had genuinely no idea what I was doing. I was, obviously it was just no-gi, but I took people through some stand-up and just got them fit and enjoyed the activity. I had about 70 or 80 members, not they weren't always there because they were in the army. I was based on an army barrack, and then I had to give that up because I did a big charity event in America where I took a team and we ran across America raising money for wounded soldiers. Charities both in the UK and the US. Raised about $250,000 for that. Australia, that is.
Okay, real quick, Damian, because I don't want to pass up on that. You came with a group of guys and you ran across the U.S. to raise money. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we ran from New York to Los Angeles. Started.
Okay, so it was a relay, like you ran for a little bit and then somebody else did. How many guys were on your team?
Yeah. So ultimately there were five of us. But as it happened, one of the guys sadly was injured a fair amount for different reasons. And so each of us ran a marathon a day every day. So it was pretty full on. One of the guys was a triple amputee and he did a mile a day. So that was his part. And then the rest of us did the other, 26 miles every day. It was 3,530 miles. So we started at USS Intrepid and then we ran and finished on Santa Monica Pier on November 11th. So Remembrance Day but very quickly, because it's such a long story on its own, is that I snapped my Achilles on my left leg about 7 weeks out. And so I couldn't run, so I did my mileage on a handbike. And so I just sit on my ass for the rest of the time. I didn't get delivery of the handbike until 2 weeks before. And eventually, I did it on, which going downhill was great. Going uphill was absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
It was honestly, using your arms to power it was, but, again, it made it a very different dynamic. It wanted to be a world record because it would be the longest transit by so few a team across states, but we couldn't do it because I'd done it on a handbike for obvious reasons. I'd spent 2 and a bit years organising this event along with a couple of other people, and there's no way I wasn't going to do it, even though everybody told me it was impossible. But that's when I say the old challenge accepted, and we did it.
Man, that's
we raised
amazing.
A lot of money, so I'm kind of proud of that. It was called the Gumper Thumb, if anybody wants to. I mean, I met so many people in America. It was amazing. Just an amazing, especially emotional experience. I remember thinking back to so many people that I met in the what you class as the best and worst places in America. But I actually met just amazing people. It was incredible. So yeah. That was that. Just a little soiree. And then, so then I started doing BJJ here in late April 2014, and I got my blue belt after about 10 and a half months, I guess. So fairly quick. I had that Marine mentality to kill everything that I roll with. And then, like you do, that white belt. And then I was competing at the state championships as a blue belt. And as a blue belt, I had a funny feeling in my right leg. And long story short, what happened is that over a period of time, I had an accident in a bobsleigh back in 2001, and it dislodged my C7 in the lower part of my neck. And over a period of time, I did another 10 years in the Marines and all this other stuff, and I've been rolling for the better part of 2 years almost. And when I went to see the doctor, and they scanned here in Australia, and they scanned my lower lumbar and my head and then my neck, and they found that 4 of my discs were squashing my spinal cord flat, and they were just amazed that I was walking rather than anything else. So I had to stop jiu-jitsu. So I pretty much stopped for the better part of 2 years, and in that time I had spinal surgery, wherein they removed 2 of the discs in my neck and replaced them with some like spacers which encourage bone growth. So I've now go and put a cage around it, screw it all together. So basically C5, 6, and 7 are now fused together. Pretty bad. But because I eventually lost the feeling in both my legs, my limbs, my groin area. Couldn't feel if I was going to the toilet or not, and my hands would shake. So I was, that was May, October, and I had that lack of feeling. So I would have been what they call a quadra or a tetraplegic if I hadn't had the surgery, because it went downhill really, really quickly. I had a couple of years off during that period before and then after, and then I came back to the mat and started training again, against some advice, but it wasn't jiu-jitsu that caused it. It was purely mismanagement of an injury that I'd sustained while I was still serving in the military, even though it was due to sport.
Yeah.
So that's it. And then obviously eventually came up with the silly idea that I had. But yeah, running across America was pretty silly as well, but it kind of worked.
So how does the well, first of all, medical science is amazing, and I'm glad you're on your feet. But how does that affect your jiu-jitsu? I take it you got to be careful with playing some guards.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately now I don't risk ordinarily doing takedowns and throws because I can't, which is I'm gutted because I used to love doing that. That was one of my things I was pretty good at keeping people off me in terms of getting takedowns. I was pretty good at sprawling or otherwise. So I've had to pull guard. And it's funny, I had a T-shirt when I first started jits, and it says on the front of it, and it says your mum pulls guard. But now I'm that guy. I actually have to pull guard. So it's kind of funny that the how it comes around to bite you. So now I have to be careful of being stacked, and I have to be careful of getting like guillotined, and some, because my movement in my neck isn't as good as obviously as it used to be. I don't notice it probably as much myself because my C7 was dislodged for so many years. I just kind of got away with it because I had pins and needles down my arm and a bit of odd feeling, and then obviously that got worse and worse and worse over the time. A long time for that to actually happen, 16 or so years. So I feel very fortunate that I'd lasted that long. So yeah, I just have to go careful, and like particularly when I did the charity roll recently here, say to people, hey, if you hadn't rolled before, and I did a big like round robin of all the most of the gyms here in South Australia, and met up with a lot of different people and say, hey, just so you know, go easy on the stacking and the guillotines, if you would please. Okay, why? Well, because if you do, you kill me. So I don't have the same flexion as a younger person would. It's as simple as that. It sounds really over-egging it, but it is quite as simple as that. And again, that lends you to the question, well, why the hell would you want to put yourself through that for 24 hours to prove a point that you can make it? So that's kind of it. I can still roll fairly well. I mean, I still give people a really hard time, I think, for most parts. Most, not everyone, but most.
Yeah. So before we started talking about the actual roll, how did you get interested, or how did you come to be involved with suicide prevention?
So in very short speak, I mean, you could go on about things. Through my career, I'd been subjected to many situations wherein the very worst a man has to do, or woman, as the case. And as a consequence of that, you go through various feelings of, self-deprecating, not really wanting to be around people, emotional guilt, rage or whatever, and for years and years and years. And of course, suicide, because you just don't want to be around people, or you don't feel worthy, perhaps. The whole range of different feelings that you go through, and I've been on the very edge of that many, many times of not wanting to be here. And so for me, it made perfect sense to help support a particular charity which seemed to do that job pretty well, as in support people who no longer wanted to be around, or just had feelings of doubt around the whole life question. Why am I here? Because if you really study why we're here, then you go, what's the point in that? Well, there is a point, because it's kind of cool when you are here, because you can do cool stuff like jits and other stuff, travel and whatever else. But some of us aren't fortunate enough to have done that. So I think for me to want to do it for in this particular case, having done stuff for military before, I wanted to do it for something which would capture everyone. Even though I'm military and my story is my own, and there are many stories like it, but people who work in a whole raft of different jobs, medical profession. I've heard recently a fairly high suicide rates, and you can understand why, because they're dealing with a whole raft of different situations there, which lend to things that don't feel worthy or whatever the signal is. It's important that people understand that they're worth it, and suicide prevention is key, because having been there and realizing how very fortunate we are to have a life, that we can continue that. So if we can help to change, and I always said, if I can change one person's life in doing this, then my job is done. And from the feedback I've had, that's happened quite a few times. So I feel very, very blessed to have been able to affect that change on people's lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did a little looking at some of the numbers in preparation for this, and I don't know how they are worldwide, but in the U.S., the suicide attempt rate's over 0.5%, which doesn't sound like much, but for our listeners, think about it. If you're at a jiu-jitsu tournament and there's 200 people there, it's very likely at least one of those people has tried to commit suicide. So this issue is probably closer to each of us than we realize.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so I'd say a 24-hour roll is pretty it's pretty spectacular, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit because how you prepare for this and how you go through with this, I think there's probably a lot for all of us to learn. So as far as the preparation, how much time did you put into the lead up on this? Certainly you didn't just decide one day that 3 months from now I'm going to roll for 24 hours.
No, it was about a year ago that I actually came up with the idea.
Okay.
And where I was training at that time, it just didn't gain any traction there at all. So I decided I moved gyms because I spoke to another guy and he said, yeah, do it. He's literally threw his hands in the air. I went, yeah, do it here, bro. Okay, well, that's what I'll do. And I moved gyms, as simple as that, because it was very important for me to facilitate this. So I did. And it was close. The gym was closer, and Tuesday and I were good mates anyway. We trained previously before another academy, which had actually closed down. So we got on really, really well. We just had the same sort of mentality and sense of humour. So, but actually, in terms of training for it, it was about 3 months. It was about 3 months that I actually started to ramp up the training, because I was very aware that I didn't want to go in too soon, because the more rolling you do, the more likely you are to injure yourself. And by the peak of, just prior to, because I had about a week off the mats before I actually did the event, because I wanted to sort of put some weight back on, because there's several arms and legs to this, but one of them particularly was diet. So if I stick with that one first, is get that out of the way. So at the time of wanted to start this, I was 91 kilos, which is a bit overweight for me. I generally walk around at about 85, 86, maybe 87. And so I did the keto diet. So I did all ketosis, and in as many weeks, I lost 10 kilos. But I also gained weight in terms of muscle by doing both weights and jiu-jitsu. I would say excessive. It was excessively, because I trained between 13 to 18 hours a week on the mats, which is obviously half a job, which, has taken its toll. And luckily for me, I have my own business where I teach leadership and do one-on-one coaching and mentoring and team building exercises. So I was able to do that at the deficit of my business. But, for me, this was a very unique and a one-off. Although, ask me another question later, is it a one-off?
That is a question for later.
So I think... yeah, I've got that answer as well. The so what of that was that I actually just hit the mats everywhere. And I said I visited 20 different academies in both South Australia here and also into Victoria State. It's about 4 hours away. The guy who we come under directly now, a guy called Mick Maloney, who then he reports to effectively Olavo Abreu, the guy I spoke of earlier. And that was as simple as that. I lost a lot of weight, getting on ketosis to burn those fats. And I tell you what, if nothing else, if you'd have told me when I was competing doing athletics or bobsleigh, and I was pretty bloody fit, as well as being a Marine as well. And you said, what are you going to do? You're going to eat no carbs pretty much, and you're going to eat loads of fats and lots of protein. I'd go, what the actual F are you talking about, man? I mean, just, you're talking out your ass. But, however, I can honestly say it's the I'm not a dieter. I think, don't put as much in your mouth as you burn. You'll lose weight. Yep. But, however, for this case, I wanted to change into a stasis where I could burn the fats because it was slow burn. I took advice from a guy here. I looked into it. I went, and both myself and my wife did it. She lost at least 6 kilos doing it and sustained that. And myself, I lost 10. So I went down to about 81.9. And then I put another few more kilos back on, another 4 or 5 kilos back on just before the event. During the event, however, I lost 5.2 kilos during that day. I lost a lot of weight during that day, which would have been whatever. Who cares? Whatever it was, I lost weight. So yeah, that was it. And so the build up, I just trained. I got kind of injured my neck. My neck will always be an issue, but it's still really tight in my neck. But I got constant massages from a group here called PhysioFit, who helped by just easing me in. Another mate of mine who's a chiro, also a black belt. He was helping me in that way. So I was constantly worked on, for want of a better word, throughout as well. That was important to maintain that level of fitness. And so people would go to open mats, and I just constantly roll. Did one day of like 4 hours straight, and then another day I'd do 2 hours in one place, 2 hours in another place, and 2 hours in another place. Sort of back to back. If nothing else ties you out, is myself or indeed my lovely wife washing geese. I can't tell you how many geese I've washed, but it's, at the same time, I had so many donated to me, which was great, and I've given some of those to people who needed them more desperately than I did. So charity comes round, it goes round, comes round. So it felt, people were, really, thanks so much. And I was like, hey man, I didn't pay for this. I know you need it more than I do. We're the same size. Yeah, take it. I didn't pay for this. It's yours. So that's another topic altogether. But so that's pretty much, go back to your question. That's what I did in terms of prep. So it was about 3 months out. But
okay, did you do any marathon rolls to try and practice, or it was just the typical 4 hours and 2 here and 2 there and that kind of thing?
Yeah, basically. There was never. Ultimately, it was mental preparation. I think. Yes, of course, physical. You need to be prepared, etc. And going learning how to tape my fingers, because my fingers were so sore. I couldn't even open a bag of candy when we finished the event. I just had nothing left.
Nothing left claw hands, right? Yeah.
Oh, it was like a T-Rex, but shit. No, it didn't affect it. Yeah. Yeah. So it was awful. But yeah, so all those things, as I found, because my fingers were sore before starting, and actually this is the first, 2 weeks out after that, my fingers are actually, they're not too bad now. But that's another conversation for I'm sure a question you have for injuries. Yep. Because I'm still injured.
So let's get on to the roll. Let's talk about the execution of a 24-hour roll. First off, what time of the day did you start it, and what kind of was your thought process behind picking a time of the day?
Yeah, so I started on the Friday, so it was the day after my 48th birthday, and I thought if I could ever give myself a good birthday present, it would be a world record. So that wasn't the reason why I did that day. The weather this time of year here or then in Adelaide is, I don't think I've had a day cooler than 35 degrees. So what's that work out? It's like 100 degrees or whatever.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's warm. It's toasty. And in the gym there, we don't have aircon. It's, with the fans, of course. And then there's now a misting system, which they've put in ready for this event, although it was like a bloody rainforest in there, because the mat, we kept mopping the mat because it was so wet. But in terms of doing it from midday through to midday, I wanted to try and capture as many people as I possibly could, because it wasn't just reliant on me. It's great having the idea, but then you need people to believe in the idea or get around it, because to have to compete effectively against 230 people, and I actually got the maths wrong initially. I thought it was 192 or something like that. And I tried to get back to that figure by doing the maths wrongly, and I can't do it. I don't know how the hell I came up with that number, but I was so wrong. And actually, until after the event, I was still wrong, because we said 228. But because I didn't factor in for the last 4 hours, the last 2 rolls were with Mick and my wife. My wife had the last roll. Actually 2 extra. There's 230, not 228. Like, oh yeah, of course there is, because we didn't have a break. I was like, oh shit, I still got the maths wrong. So, obviously maths, Marines, maybe not. We'll leave it at that. I don't know setting my my brothers over the water there. So yeah, we so that's how it worked. Thinking that I capture the people who were leaving work on a Friday, or those at college perhaps, or whoever that work night shifts, to try and get as many different people to go from lunchtime through to lunchtime, and then at least finish at lunchtime that day. Again, this might sound a bit crazy as well, but on Saturday night there'd be an after party, which we did. So at least we'd get a few beers in on the Saturday night. Have to go home, have a few hours sleep. Trust me, that did not happen. And then just go out and have a few beers, a well-deserved beer as well.
Yes,
might I add.
For sure.
Yeah, so that was the idea behind it.
And what was your plan for a work rest schedule for the 24 hours? How were you approaching that?
Sure. So I thought, well, if I was going to try and make this something that Guinness would acknowledge to a greater degree of how anybody could do it in the future and beat this, would be, well, what does everybody eventually do? Well, everybody eventually does 5 minutes, regardless of the belt. They do 5 minutes. So let's make it 5 minutes, because it would be, we can set it at the high standard, as a black belt, sub 30 years old, 10 minutes, etc., etc. Well, no, because after a certain age, after 30, you get down to 5 minutes regardless. So tell you what, 5 minutes. Generally on the mats, you go for an open mat. People have like a minute's rest. Some more, some less, some roll for less. I thought, well, 5 minutes, minutes rest, 5 minutes, minutes rest, 5 minutes rest. So do that, but ultimately I need to go perhaps pee, poo, whatever else. As it happened, I never needed to poo at all. This might be too much information, but just people will be thinking, well, how did you go? Well, I didn't go. That's okay. I just didn't go for number twos. I did go for peas, but the peas did occur during we had a 12-minute break. So from midday through to 3:48 p.m. on the Friday, was 5 minute, 1 minute, 5 minute, 1 minute all the way through. So 38 people. And then we came to that point where we had 12-minute breaks. So that was 2 rolls taken out and then a break to go take off and gi, because I was just soaking wet through the whole time, as you can probably imagine. So take the gi off and my spats and long sleeve rash guard. Top tip, if you're going to do it, do that, because honestly, you're chafing, horrendous.
Yeah.
And then go jump in an ice bath, get massage around the neck, arms, whatever I could during that period. Eating, protein balls or liquid soup, which give me the worst flatulence ever. I mean, just my goddamn, do I smell? Sorry for the people who rolled me. And then pretty much get back on the mats, new gi, dry off, new gi, slap, bump, and away we go. Repeat and do that. And so I had 5 of those 12-minute breaks, which sounds like a long time, but actually that was the worst time. I hated it. Initially, I didn't mind the ice bath. I was an Arctic warfare instructor when I was in the Marines. Loved doing all that stuff in Norway. Doing that, hated it. Absolutely hated every single time after the second go, because it was just, I just wanted to get to bed. I just wanted to go, no, chill out. I just want to get on the mats and do jits, and then I could roll routine. So I actually got into the point where I'd enjoy 30 seconds rest that I could remember with doing the between parts. And the reason I say that is I'd finish rolling with whoever it was, we'd stand up, and by the time we stood up and you've given them a hug, 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so, then walk back to the point where I'd take an image, have an image of me taken with the next person to roll with, and then we'd have an image taken, and by that point then Chris or Paul or whoever stood next to there, because we got to routine, okay, 30 seconds, and I go, right, 30 seconds now, I've got enough time to reach in to take my mouth guard out, pull out a bit of protein ball or one of these little jelly sweets or something, and drink, and then they put ice on my sternum and on my neck, and then sort out the cuts on my face, whatever, because I got cut fairly early on. I got a big black eye fairly early on, and dealt that with the cut over the black eye. It was like imagine just going into a fight, in a cage or in a boxing ring, and you get like Stitcher being there sorting your face out. Well, that was exactly what it was like, but 230 times. It was pretty much full on the whole time. And I just got into routine, and I knew that when I had 10 seconds left, I could take a last drink, and then at 5 seconds, I could stand up and walk back across, and then put my mouth guard in, and I was walking across. Ready, slap bump, give the next person a hug, although sometimes I thought I was trying to go for double unders, so I was like, no, just give me a hug, you damn idiot. Yeah, I'm trying to hug you. I'm not trying to throw you over. Have you not seen what everyone else has been doing? I'm not here to kill you, so and vice versa, hopefully. But people did come to kill me as well. I mean, oh my God, what are you doing? I've been rolling for 16 hours. You need to calm the down.
Yeah. Oh man. So that sounds busy. Tell me about your support team. You must, because you're doing an ice bath, you're taking pictures, you're getting some medical attention, and all this is going on for 24 hours. So you must have had a pretty good support team.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started off in the whole 24 hours, it was some mistakes, and it was like, right, who's rolling next? Get them here, because I haven't got time to wait around. So eventually, that wasn't an issue. But it was annoying because at the same time, throughout, there were at least maybe 30 to 50 people, and then a lot more at the end, particularly, who were there to watch this. Even in the smaller hours, 3 o'clock in the morning, there was 40, 50 people knocking around, just sat there watching or doing rolls of their own on the mats to the side. Or it was amazing. It was just incredible. But then we got into a routine. It was like when I come off, there would be taking the picture. So it's just 1 or 2 pictures of us sat down. There'd be Joe, Chanel, or Nicola doing that, or my wife would be doing it initially. But she was running around all the time. Tuesday, I would be doing the ice on the back of my neck, especially when I got later on when it was obvious I'd injured my chest. Excuse me, doing that. And then when my face was just absolutely in bits because the gi rash. I grown my beard out a little to help protect, but then and have a slight rubbing of Vaseline against that, but that soon went. And then when I'd open up my gi to get Chris or Paul to rub a bit of Vaseline around my face, around my neck, and that was like heaven, man. I can't even tell you how good that was. That was the best part because my neck was on fire. I did a podcast 3 or 4 days after. I sat there talking to the girl, and I was just flaking onto the floor on the carpet. I was just skin just falling off. I'm really sorry, I'm Mr. Flaky right now, but yeah. I mean, it was hideous. That was probably worse than the chest injury, or it felt like it at least, because it was all the time. People getting cross face and rubbing their shoulder, digging their shoulder into my face. I'm like, oh, that hurts, man, that hurts so bad. So you just but it made you move. It made you get out of those positions. So I was still, I believe, effecting relatively good jiu-jitsu way through to the very end. I was still tapping people into the last hour, so that was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, the support team, Tuesday, amazing man, love him to bits. I shall never, ever forget what he did for that in terms of hosting the event there to his detriment, I would guess, to a part, but also hopefully now people can see what a good facility we've got there and go, hey, let's come train there because they've got world record holders and stuff there. And then my wife, who did an amazing job throughout as well with the social media. We were told by Are You OK that this was the furthest reaching, biggest campaign that they've ever had supporting them, bar none, and also the largest fundraiser they've ever had. So, and as a result of that, they asked me to be an ambassador for them. So that's a great honour and privilege, I guess. So yeah, I mean, that's it. The support team was amazing. And between Mick and Ashley and Tuesday and Mel picking me up after 12 minutes and rushing me around, undoing my belt, as there's so many funny pictures, inappropriate or otherwise, when you got all these people and videos of these things happening, and it was just comedy, mate. There's so many things that I forget and remember, or I'm reminded of, because it was so intense. But even then, I remember looking around when I was rolling around on the mats, in between things, and looking up at people that were there. And a mate of mine had turned up from Brisbane, so in terms of distance-wise, that's a 3-hour flight, I guess, from here. And he's in the Marines, and we served together. We did some work back in the UK, etc. And he turned up. He came down for the event, and another mate of mine who actually we were in training together, basically training. He lives in Victoria State, and he'd flown over with his wife. And to see those guys, really emotional for me that they'd made all that effort to come and watch me get my ass kicked for a day. That's probably why they came to do it, to come and watch me get my ass kicked for a day. But it was amazing. Those things I'll never, ever, ever forget, amongst others. But yeah, it was incredible. The support people just made it easier for me. They didn't make the physical part easier, but the transition between roles was eventually seamless. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Nice. As far as your jiu-jitsu, did you notice parts of it failing as you fatigued, or positions that were maybe not working as well, or did your whole game just sort of degrade evenly?
The part that I have the least recollection of would be between 8 p.m. and midnight. So after 8 hours through to midnight. That part was a little bit, and still a little bit hazy. When I look at the, Susan did video, and if you haven't seen it, I'll send it to you.
Okay, perfect.
Is you watch the degradation of man. If you want to see the degradation of man, then, but it also goes kind of all the way down, but then picks up again. Now, the thing I had to say, which I should have said at the 12-hour point, and then at the 20-hour point, I had an IV inserted into me. So a company here called the Drip Club, and they support sort of pro athletes and others, and they put an IV to it, saline solution, but they put some goodies in there as well. So magnesium, Vit C, whatever they put in. I always go, yep, put what you like into me. I don't well, within reason. Put what you like into me. If it's good, then go for it. And absolutely 100% made a difference. 100% made a difference. Was that cheating? Well, no, not really. I sweat a lot. And as a consequence, that's good because it's good for your metabolism. It's always a good thing to actually sweat. It keeps your body at a reasonable temperature. So I knew that my biggest enemy was going to probably be dehydration. Now, we were fortunate actually on that day to have a little bit cooler than 35, which I'd had as standard. I think we were about 29 that day. The following day, actually, that was a 35-degree day on a Saturday. So I could feel that morning when I was rolling, it was a lot warmer. I was sweating a lot again. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I felt I was actually sweating more that day than I was the day before. And at the end, I did feel super dehydrated. So I had the IV in, and that was great. So feeling that delirium up to about midnight and then rolling again, people watching it, so I can probably only tell you from what people watching were like, oh my God, where the hell's he? I'd still be rolling like me, like said about my grip strength, comments about my grip strength, because I'm told I've got insane grip strength. I'm that strong old guy. Oh, you don't look like much. Oh shit, how strong are you? I'm that guy apparently. And so my grip strength was still ridiculous throughout to the very end. But I do recollect that I was utilizing my lockdown, which again is one of my things, which people hate. I can tap people with my lockdown, which Eddie Bravo, I'm sure, is very, very keen to hear and happy to hear. But so I think I did use that a lot, and as a consequence to that, my left leg was completely black, bruised, absolutely lumpy, bruised, because I used it a lot, because it kept people away. So I kept them away from my face and my neck. So I do find that I use that a lot. But as for the rest of the jiu-jitsu, yes, I'm sure if I was to watch back the video, and I haven't actually watched it at all yet, apart from the very end, I haven't watched because again, I've got a day to sit down and watch me get smashed on the mat. So, but there are elements of it that I've seen, little bits and bobs that were posted on social media. To actually say, was my jiu-jitsu bad? Yeah, I guess it must have been, but I never once gave up. I never crossed my mind to give up.
Never reached a point where you thought it might be it, huh?
Nah, never once. Because you know what, the simple thing about that there was an end point, and so many things in life we do when we struggle with that we don't know the end point. That's where we struggle, because we need to have a focus, a goal. And the goal was midday on Saturday, the the 23rd. So I knew I'd get there. I just had to, and yeah, I'd get submitted. I mean, I don't think many people thought I'd still be submitting other purple belts into the 24th hour. But hey, guess what? I did. Why? How? Who cares? It happened. So, but there was never a point where, if you think about it this way, it gets easier. Yes, I get more tired, but I've got less people to fight. So it's going to get easier, right? That's the way I think about it.
As time marches on,
you have to look at it.
Yeah, you got that much less to go.
Wait's another. Yeah. So, that was that round finished. Oh, this guy rolled like an idiot. Well, I guarantee he won't be rolling again because people, there are people watching, and I'd say to people, what are you doing? Calm. You submitted me after 15 hours. Great, but you submit me, fine, and I'll yield. And I did yield to things I wouldn't normally yield to. Okay, fine, you submitted me. I'll let my ego go, and people got arm bars because normally I can hold an arm bar for a long time. If somebody's doing a normal straight arm bar, legs over, I can hold that for a long time. And there's people who've witnessed that, but I wasn't going to gain anything. Okay, you submitted me, right? Crack on, slap bump, let's go again, let's keep going. So that's what I did. But I had to be reminded that Suso would say, just let it go. Just let it go. Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, I'll let it go. So yeah, tap. Let's move on. And that was it. So it wasn't stop after submission. It was stop after 5 minutes. So we just keep going. But yeah, I think, did it get worse? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it did. But then again, stand straight. But at the same time, I was still doing some good stuff, I think Mick Maloney, who's the first degree black belt, trained at Mildura, who's an excellent man and an excellent practitioner. And he said one of the key points for him watching me was into the 23rd hour or 24th hour or thereabouts, and he watched me, and I'd done something, whatever, and I was still going, pulling guard back, recovering positions. And I looked across at him, did the old Shaka sign, and winked at him. And he said it just smacked him in the face, and his tears streaming down his face. He said it was just unbelievable. He said, how the hell are you doing this? And you just, I don't know. The answer is you just do. You need to have, you just need to. That's as simple as that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're still in the recovery period, I guess, after 2 weeks. I had a question here to ask you how much you slept. I would have guessed that you went home and slept for 12 hours, but it doesn't sound like that was the case.
I slept for about 20 minutes to half an hour. We got home because my wife, she'd been up most of the night as well. I think she had a bit of a combat kit at some point during the 24, but she was running around like a blue-ass fly all the time, as were so many others. And we got home, got a shower, and that was painful as well. Assessed the damage. Excuse me. And tried to go to bed, knowing that we were going to go out later on for 7:30. Sort of 5.5 hours later, and couldn't sleep. Just could not sleep. Tried, put a movie on, tried to sleep. That just didn't work. And so just catnapping, trying to catch up on social media, trying to watch your phone, and just didn't do it. And so eventually got up with like a half jet lag, exhaustive feeling to myself, and obviously painful. And my brother-in-law, he came with his car, and we live on a hill, so we walked to the driveway because to get down with his car, he's got this low slung V8, and we went walking up the hill, man, walking up in flip-flops or thongs, depending on what you call them. And man, my calves, I didn't realise that until that point how screwed my legs were. My legs were just, I had nothing in the tank at all because, the adrenaline had gone. So there's no adrenaline shot to pump those muscles. It was nothing. So I was trying to walk up this damn hill, and it's literally 30 meters. Gee, just hideous. And I didn't realize just how bad it was, but it was. And then we went out and had a few beers. I met with some of those Marines I spoke of earlier. Did a couple of shots with them. Why I do that? Because I was super dehydrated. I'll never know. But I didn't actually feel drunk at all. And then, there's a guy here called Craig Ikey who runs Diamondback, which is a mixed martial arts organisation here in South Australia. It's an awesome show. And he said, have a beer, Obi, because nobody calls me Damian, everyone calls me Obi. Have a beer, Obi. I went, okay, yeah, we'll do it down in one. I was like, you're going to get me to chug a beer after I've done that for 24 hours? Yeah. Okay, let's do that. So, yeah, chink glasses and away we go. Neither of us did it in a one because he couldn't do it either. So I thought, well, at least that's good because I couldn't because it was damn fizzy as well. It wasn't like a stale ale. It was just this fizzy, sparkling shit. And, so, yeah, I mean, didn't sleep. And same for that same night. Didn't sleep very well that night. Got a better kip the following night. But every night I've been bombarded with messages, as I was beforehand, and they generally stuck around. Good luck. Beforehand, they were good luck. You're an idiot. Yeah. Or, hey, and I'm being really diplomatic with that. Or the third one would be messages from people all over the world saying, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I struggle, and what you've done is amazing. What you're doing is amazing. And thereafter, the messages were, that was just, whatever people say, inspirational and hero I've seen. And I mean, I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy just trying to prove a point that, when you're down on your luck and whatever, there's always somebody willing to help. You don't even know them. I don't know half the people around the world, but I've sent video messages to random people. I hope they're the people they say they are, and if they're not, then they've got a video message of me telling them to stay strong and good luck. But I think they are.
Yeah.
Because people have been very courageous in coming forward and telling me, and people that I know as well. You never know what's behind those eyes. There's a whole different world behind that face, the whole facade of humankind saying, "Oh yeah, actually, I'm really struggling. I've contemplated suicide, etc." You go, "Oh wow, you'd never think it," but then people have said to me that they'd never think that of me because they see me as this, former Marine, etc., strong as. Yeah, I am, but I'm still human. We're all human. We all have weak points, but the failing in that is thinking that you standing up and saying, "Hey, I struggle sometimes." That's not weakness. That's the courage it takes to actually do that is exponentially greater than most other things you'll ever do, because you're actually saying, I'm human. I'm a human being. We are that. We have weaknesses, but it's our strength that comes from that as well.
Absolutely. So, give me a rundown of the nicks and dings you took. I know your face got pretty beat up. How did this sternum injury occur?
Yeah, the exact initial point of trauma I can't remember. So what it is there's I think at least 2 to 3 cracked ribs down my right hand side, just outside the sternum, literally just outside. And I had an X-ray only this week, and again they said it's really hard to see those type of injuries, so not to be 100%. So, but again, even if they said there is, I just wanted to confirm there wasn't anything else more sinister behind that, and that's definitely the case. So there isn't anything else. It's just cracked ribs. So, and on the left hand side, I'd split the cartilage on one rib previously, and that's gone all the way now. So I've got a nice little chicken wing sticking out the left hand side of my rib cage, and that just feels uncomfortable. It'll probably annoy somebody else more if they're in side control on my left hand side now than me. And my neck, torn port the ligament or the tendon over my left hand side shoulder, and my neck is just tight. It's sore, but that will just calm down. I mean, I've done as many hours of training. I've done over, I think for the average person, well over a year's worth of training in 2.5 months. So, I mean, even in that a day of rolling, that's to some people, that's 12 weeks. Some people only do a couple of hours a week, and that's 12 weeks. Okay, well, have 3 months of rolling in a day. Okay, good. And nobody says that. Well, yeah, I did. So it's a significant amount of rolling, week in, week out. So yeah, there's over 3 years worth of rolling in the space of 2.5 months. So I feel very lucky to have had the injuries I've got. Like I said, mat burns on my toes, my fingers, they look like carrots because they're so lumpy from all the, when people ripping the gi out from your hand as you're gripping on tightly. But then I learned to combat that a little bit by releasing a bit sooner, because you can tell when people are going to do something. So yeah, okay, well, I'll let go of that now. Yep. But I need to let go of that, so then I can do something else. It's all, like they say, it's human chess. So I'll be another sort of 4 weeks before I can roll properly, I guess. And it's only got to yesterday that I actually got frustrated of not being on the mats. I had a catch up last night with Tuesday and a few of the other people from the gym. They have an investors meeting, and we got invited to Mel and I got invited to go down and talk about how the whole thing was and what they think they do as an academy, as me as an insider but an outsider for that group. And I was just chatting to one of the guys there, Matty, and we said, first day I missed it today. I was showing some of the students some jiu-jitsu, not actually in class, because I teach some overseas students on the weekends for another couple of weeks. I've got that job. And I just showed them, talk about doing a berimbolo. Oh, what's a berimbolo? I'll show you. And I was like, damn. Because berimbolo is the things I can not do particularly well now because of my neck. I don't have that same, and I enjoyed doing that as a slightly taller guy to do a berimbolo. I thought it was kind of cool. So, I practice that a lot. And, but now I can't really do it, as well. So I just use, OB strength and just go to one side and then just grab the belt and rip them down onto the floor ordinarily rather than do a full-on berimbolo. So, and hopefully get my leg in to get the back. But so yeah, it's first day yesterday. I'd actually missed being on the mats, because I tried to stay away as much as I could. I'm keen to get back now because, I love it. I don't know what I'd do without it, I guess, now for my mental health and well-being, because, there is nothing I've done that has the same sort of similarity, brotherhood type, sisterhood type as well, if you wish, to being as a soldier. That you can go and you can trust people, that you can work with, fight with, that they've got you back. And I don't mean any pun intended on getting you back, seatbelt. But to have and be amongst that group of people who've got ordinarily the same mindset, to get better, to progress. There's not many people or organisations that do that. It was very much a look after myself world, but I think the jiu-jitsu community is amazing, absolutely amazing. And I feel very proud of the fact that I was able, through my vision and the help of others, to then get people to get together in what I can say was probably the world's biggest open mat.
Yeah,
it was awesome. It was amazing. I feel very honoured to have the vision and facilitate that through my work and other people's work, Melissa's and Sue's Day and all those other people who I could reel on for names, but we did that, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, you just did a real good job of explaining why jiu-jitsu is growing like it's growing and what's so special about the community. When you talked earlier about giving gis away and that kind of thing, I think that happens every day in our community, and it really is one of the things that keeps me in it for sure.
Yeah.
So would you do it? Would you do it again? The 24-hour roll?
I intend to.
You intend to?
I intend to.
Okay, tell me about your plans for that. What can we look forward to?
Well, you can, I can't. I can't look forward to it at all. I think we're hideous again. But I've so there's a guy who I was put in touch with by Avery Clements, who's the managing editor of the Jiu-Jitsu Times. So she put me in touch with a guy called Ray Lopez, who had done a similar thing over in the States.
I interviewed Ray's, I believe they're husband and wife, but he did one to raise awareness for his wife or then girlfriend's illnesses, and we had her on the show recently, and very inspiring story.
Kimberly.
Yeah, Kimberly. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Kimberly Kay. Yeah. So Ray. So I chatted. So I got those top tips from Ray. So what he did was slightly different, less people, but same idea. So 10-minute rounds, 3 minutes off, 10-minute round, 3 minutes off. And then after 12 hours, he had an hour off and then rolled for the rest of the 24 hours. I think that's right. If that's wrong, Ray, I'm sorry. But as far as I remember, that was what you did. And there was 102 people, maybe. I can't remember. I can't do it. Again, Marines, maths, snacks together. Something like that, okay? And never did anything with Guinness. And he kind of, as his own admission, kicks himself for not doing so. So when I finished this today, we actually spoke on the phone previously, and actually had a video call with him last week. And I said, hey, you doing? And, good to see. And he was like, very, very, said great work on your thing. And I was watching this. And that's the thing about the community. I think there were 43 different countries watching the live stream of the event we had here. That's insane. 43 countries watching this silly old English guy, 48-year-old English guy getting smashed on the mats. People interested in watching it. And people, I'm going off topic a bit, but people saying, I went to the toilet at 3 a.m. I'll just check in on Obi's live stream to go to the toilet and go, hey man, he's still going. One of the guys who's a UFC fighter here, he'd done it. He said, I'd gone for a piss at 3 a.m. I thought, I'll just check on Obi. Wow, he's still going. Okay, cool. And then went back to bed. It's funny. It's hilarious. But, I can't imagine, I'll just check on, see if, just check on, see if Usain Bolt's doing 100 meters you get to watch it, but you could, because it was over such a protracted amount of time, you could do that. And people saying at work they were just had it like minimized in a corner, just watching. Why would you watch me just do that? But again, it's incredibly humbling, but funny at the same time. Anyway, I digress. Go back to Ray, and I said, look, I've got an idea, but not for next year, because I've got another idea for next year here, which is totally separate from jiu-jitsu, but I'd like to see the jiu-jitsu community get involved. The year after, how about you and I, Ray, you and I fight each other for 24 hours? So me against the black belt. I'll probably still be a purple belt, I would imagine, unless I've got to purple belt very quickly, effectively just over 3 years now.
Yeah, but you just, but Obi, you just added a year's worth of training to your regimen. That's kind of true. It's actually funny, very quick on that. When Mick had promoted me to purple belt, so and then 4 weeks later we rolled again, and he went, man, he said, for the first time in 2 years I had to think how I'm going to deal with you, and said that was good. And I said that was one of the best sort of pats on the back you could have ever had, from because Mick's just a weapon. He's a pain in the ass. He knows he is. He's good. And so for him to say that, I felt really, really privileged for him to say that. Having in 4 weeks, because I'd rolled, for nearly the better part of 80 hours or certainly 70 hours between seeing him last, and you just roll with all these different academies, and you learn all their stuff or some of their stuff. And so, because you can see the guys that train at the academy emulate their coach. They have a similar style because they get that all the time. And I got to pick all those things and pick the good things that worked for me. And I'll use that. Oh, I'll watch that. Oh, that's good. So anyway, so Ray, and he's like, oh man. very, very, very American. Oh man. I'm certainly familiar with, I've been to the States many times. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So, and I can't actually remember what he said. So I think he said yes, but save that. The other alternative that I came up with only a day or so ago was to roll against 230 black belts. I could do that, but I want to do it in Vegas. Get somebody over there to sponsor it, and let's make $1 million. Let's make $1 million. If we got all the top names behind it, no egos, no bullshit, get behind it and raise $1 million. By rolling in Vegas, even get the big men in the big organizations, let's say, to get behind it, and just for a day, just roll. And again, same mentality, just roll in, flow in, getting submissions, can't move on. Exactly the same scenario, but for a day. If I could get 230 black belts to roll against them, and there are definitely 230 black belts, and if there were only 100 that they came and rolled twice or whatever, then that would be pretty special, I think. People think I'm insane, but I don't care. That's insanity, sitting back and doing nothing while watching people suffer. I believe that's insanity, not what I'm doing. Yeah, absolutely. Well, keep us posted on the plans on that, and we'd love to somehow be involved. And if nothing else, get you on the show a week or two beforehand and get the word out that you're doing it. But yeah, keep us posted on that.
Absolutely. 100%.
So real quick, a couple things before we go here. We're running out of time, but what advice would you have for somebody else who's considering doing something like this? Don't.
Not do it. I think you know what, just be aware that if you're going to do this and do this properly and get the people behind it. I mean, my wife and I pretty much did the main crux of the marketing, etc. for this, and she does that as a job. You need to get people on board, and I think a lot of people are really surprised as to how, you know, Are You Okay, for example, as the charity, we're really surprised how many people we've got on board and the money we've raised. But I think it's not the physical aspect, because people can do it, but they don't think they can because they tell themselves that they can't. But, you know, I never even thought about doing the event. I just thought about, well, I'm going to roll for 24 hours. Okay, well, I best do some training. And I did some weight training. I did some jiu-jitsu training, and that's all. I don't really do weight training anymore. I don't need to. But I did for this. But I think the best thing is prepare mentally for the work up to it and the work after. And choose your time to read messages from people. If you're doing it for a charity or something, and I say do it for something. Don't just do it for shits and giggles. Raise money. Do something for someone. There's always, sadly, charities are needed in the world, because there's always going to be, you know, the government can't pay for everything. Why? Just because that's life. Mm-hmm. You know, accept it. So sadly, we have to have charities. So do it for a cause. Don't just do it for a world record, because that's just, what's the point? Just, you know, records are there broken. This will get broken eventually. Good on you. You know, and if it's somebody who's 25, then you've got 25 years nearly on me. So, you know, as a 48-year-old doing that, I feel great to show that we slightly older people have still got it in us, some of us at least. But I think that preparation is mental, and choose when to read your messages from other people carefully, because I've read messages at night before I go to sleep and I can't sleep. People who are struggling, and I really struggle to go to sleep. So I say choose your timings wisely to read messages. I know these seems totally irrelevant to, oh, how do I prep for this? But I'll tell you what, it makes a big difference, because the next day you're exhausted because you can't sleep, and then you've got shit to do that day. And so then you're playing catch up. So use your time wisely. Get as many people involved as you can. You can't get too many people involved in terms of, you know, sponsors and this, that, and the other. Because eventually, when you get to a certain point, people come to you, which they have, you know, which is great, and it's flattering and it's humbling, etc. But then again, make sure you get the right people. There are a lot of time wasters in this world. And make it a thing for other people. It's definitely not, this wasn't about me. This was about a message I was trying to send. And I'm not the message. The message is simple, and it's one that can be resonated from so many other people. You just got to see that. I mean, so, you know, there's some messages that went out when the Jiu-Jitsu Times first did theirs, and I think ADCC shared it, and the people there, is it doing it for him or doing it for them? And they're the kind of people I go, well, you know, what have you actually done for somebody else in your life? Actually for somebody else, because you're resonating what you think. So therefore that's what you are. So, you know, shame on you, Mr., Mrs., whatever. You know, it's not about, this has never been about me. Yes, I've done something and people are inspired by it, but they're inspired by it. I'm just a medium to have done it. Somebody else will do it. You know, like Ray, he did it for people. I'm sure he did that same people for them, inspired them. Good. We inspired you. So what are you going to do about it? Inspired you to do what? Do something. It doesn't have to be something as grandioso as that. It could be something less, and it's still important. 100%. But of course, train lots, eat well, and a keto diet. I mean, I've kind of gone off it. I've had some bad days since we finished, because you know what, I wanted pizza or I wanted this or something, because, you know, and I think I earned it. But I think our lifestyle will now be based around that. So, you know, look at how you're going to prep best. And I'd say that keto, you know, I had so much energy off it, because you're burning fats. And, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Nice. That's good advice. And real quick for our listeners, you've mentioned being inspired a lot. If you're listening to this podcast and you feel inspired, go do something. Find a charity you can get involved in. If there's somebody you know that appears to be struggling, find out what you can do to help them. Reach out to them, at least let them know you're there for them. So all of this doesn't mean much if people don't act on it. So if you're listening and you're inspired, do something.
Absolutely.
Real quick, let's close on a lighter note. How big a Star Wars fan are you?
I love Star Wars. Do I watch it every day? I don't even have the damn things on Blu-ray. I should. I'd love to. I should watch them on Blu-ray so I could watch them every now and again. But I watched the original Star Wars when I was 6 years old, back in the UK, up in a place called Scarborough, one of my favourite seaside towns. And I love it. And I always liked Stormtroopers. And I have 7 Star Wars tattoos. I've got Yoda in a jiu-jitsu belt, in a jiu-jitsu gi with a coral belt on my right calf, and I've got me as Obi-Wan on my upper left shoulder. The guy who did those tattoos, he rolled with me on the at the event. I at some point inspired him to do jiu-jitsu after I'd been for the tattoos 4 years ago, and he came and rolled, and he's actually going to do a tattoo for me for free as a result of me doing that role, because he said I deserved it as a very least. So I'm going to get my belts tattooed above my jiu-jitsu Yoda. So ultimately, I'm a kind of a big fan. But everybody knows me as Obi. People never call me Damian. I don't really introduce myself as Damian nowadays, unless it's in a business manner. But even then, I'm eventually Obi. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, this is the original Star Wars. That's one of those events that people that went and saw that live, our age, I was about 10 when it came out. Yeah, people remember that event. So, awesome.
Incredible. Yeah.
All right, man. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Do you have anybody you want to give a shout out to real quick before we say goodbye?
I'll just say everybody that sponsored us, and the people there who turned up, people that rolled with me, you're awesome. Couldn't have done it without you. And I always said from the get-go, this isn't mine, this is ours. And it was. There were 231 people that made that event. And I think there were 200 originals, so 200 unique people. Some rolled twice, but I think there were 200 unique individuals. You are exactly that unique, awesome. And then finally, the team that were there closest around me, helping support throughout. Thank you so very much. And of course, lastly but no means least, my beautiful wife. She's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show and talking to us, man.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it very much.
All right. I want to thank Damian, Obi, for being on the show. I was inspired by interviewing him. It was a joy. One thing I took away from it, he likes to talk about rolling 24 hours and doing these athletic feats. He's done a couple of other things. But, man, when he talks about the cause that he's doing it for, you can hear the genuineness in his voice. So I appreciate him doing what he's doing for this cause and being part of our community.
That's awesome. And, thanks, Joe, for the interview. I really like that you found him and brought him on and helped him share his story.
If you listened to the interview and you liked it, tell a friend, share it with them. That's one way you help us to grow the show. Tell a friend. And if you want to come train with us, you can find me down in Houston or south thereof. And where can they find you, Gary?
Wichita, Kansas, the air capital of the world. You can find Byron and I here, middle of the United States. As Joe likes to say, vacation destination of the world. And so we are here if you ever want to roll with us or you happen to be passing through.
All roads lead to Wichita.
They do,
especially
in the
this
middle
summer.
of June, yeah.
In June, is that a good place to be in June, guys?
It's one of the best places to be in June. June 14, 15, and 16 is the BjjBrick event, the summer camp, where we're bringing in Samir Chantry and Gina Franson, and we're going to be having several seminars. They're each going to do one, and then the BJJ crew is going to do a seminar the next day. So Samir and Gina's will be on Saturday. BJJ crew is Sunday, and on Friday. If you get in Friday, super cool. We're going to have to open mat time. Good times have by all. We had a great time last year meeting you guys and hanging out with a lot of listeners and getting some good mat time on and training. So we're hoping to do that again. meet. We're expecting some of the same faces that we've met last year, and hoping for a few new ones as well. That could be you. Did that sound commercially? So check the show notes for more information. Go to foxfitnessbjj.com, and there's information there. Or just go to the show notes, and there's some links and some pictures as well. But we're going to have a great time this summer. Guys, we've got an article this week. Not a surprise, I guess, because we have one about every week.
Because we've done one about 257 weeks.
Yeah.
No, this is a good one. This is a topic that we talk about on the show.
Where'd 257 come from?
What was our number?
He did the math and he realized that
I'm sorry, 297.
He did the math and realized you guys did 40 episodes before you started doing it.
Okay.
When did we start?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it was 40. Yeah. Those got my back.
Gary.
Literally.
Yeah, I got your back, brother. Gary's quick with math like that.
But what is our article this week?
The 4 T's of your favorite training partner. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. Byron is not my favorite training partner. But this is a great article. It's by Peter McHugh. And, it talks about your favorite training partner. The 4 T's. Tough, technical, threatening, trustworthy. And, you just think about, if you've been training for 1 month or 20 years, you've had so many training partners in your life, but it just seems like there's always that one person you gravitate towards. And, there's a lot of times they have all 4 of those T's: tough, technical, threatening, and trustworthy.
Tough is definitely a big one for me. I think, I like everybody I roll with, but a couple of the guys that I would consider to be my favorite training partners, part of the reason they're my favorite training partners is they're kind of a yardstick. We've been training together for quite a few years and, sort of at the same level technically. And so when we roll together, sometimes it's like a test. And he talks about that a little bit in the article. It's like your favorite training partners are the ones that kind of like the same intensity level you do, and they don't get offended if they get tapped. And, you're both at a point where if it gets a little rough, you can recognize that and pull back a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a big one, is that toughness, so that when you push hard, they can push back just as hard.
I like what you said there, Joe, about a yardstick. I think that's totally on point. Next T is technical. And I really love rolling with technical grapplers. And, I think one thing is I'm getting a little bit older and, I'm trying to stay safe. And I notice, the more I roll with a really, really technical people, I don't have the bumps and bruises, the aches and pains the next day. But, I love technical movements or technical rolls. Like the author says, movement is fun and the smoother the better, kind of like Byron's peanut butter. But, smooth rolls, very technical, take you down a path that you don't want to go and just put you in all sorts of danger. Those are rolls I really like to do.
Yeah. Looking a little further down the list here, and we'll put a link to this on the show notes. Threatening. And he mentions in the article, if the person's not threatening to your jiu-jitsu, then they're just your favorite punching bag. It's not. It's just something that you enjoy doing because it's easy. A good training partner will be able to threaten you and to put you in a situation where you have to defend it or get tapped out. And that's definitely something that you should look for. You don't want it to be. It's also not like totally destroying your game either. We're looking for something that's a good matchup. And that, if you do well, that'll show. If you're a white belt and you do well against your coach, sometimes it's hard to tell if they're rolling, competitively. You won't even notice. You got tapped out 5 times. Okay, but you still did a lot of things right. But if you do well against one of these style of training partners, you'll notice, okay, most of the time I was doing a little bit better than I do on average with this person. That was a good roll for me. And but you do need training partners that can threaten you, whether it's certain parts of their game or certain techniques that give you a hard time. Those are important for them to have.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd like to make a point about that, Byron, that they're not your favorite training partner, they're your favorite punching bag. That depends on your attitude coming into the role. Because,
good point.
your favorite training partner may be, 2 belts below you, and they're able to threaten you because you guys have a relationship. And when you roll, you try new things, you expose your weaknesses, and it gives them an opportunity to be threatening. So I don't think necessarily that my favorite training partner has to have a 50-50 chance of beating me in an actual competitive match. They do have to, like you said, have some tools to bring to the table, but we can set the rules of engagement, so to speak, so that it's challenging for both of us.
Yeah, I like that, Joe. I was going to say the same thing. I like, you talked about they do have to have a couple tools in their tool bag. They don't have to have a tool chest. But it's your attitude, putting yourself in positions for the lesser opponent to take advantage.
Yeah, that's a good point, Joe. And so you don't need to look for. I don't know about ranking my training partners and picking out the absolute favorite ones, but
you don't have a ranking like 1 through 50? Keep a tally
and a little book. But good training partners, same as a good rolling session, you'll be threatened at least a little bit. And if it's partially because you kind of got your back taken because you helped them, they've been working on that and it happened, and then you have to defend that, and maybe you give them a good grip when they take your back, and then you work out of that. That's you also being a good training partner for them, but they should be able to give you a little bit of a challenge as well. So the last T on this list of these 4 is trustworthy. And man, these could be like, the 4 T's of a good spouse: tough, threatening, trustworthy.
I don't know about a good spouse, but they're 4 T's of my spouse. No.
But I'll say
my spouse, after all, sat around for a decade watching me get hassled by a fish cop, knowing she was the problem.
Well, she was worried if she would have brought that up, because you're tough, you're technical, and she thought you might be a little threatening, so she didn't want to bring it up.
Nah, I just imagine she had 25 years of giggles. So anyway,
but I do think trustworthy is a big one. I think we can look at this a couple different ways. Trustworthy, I think, Joe catches me in an arm bar and, let's say I'm still a little stubborn and I'm not tapping really quick, even though it's over. Joe's going to catch and release. He's not going to rip my arm off. Joe goes to pass and he stacks me and sees my neck getting caught in a weird position, even though Joe's got an easy pass to side control where he can start bringing the heat. Joe straightens me back out so I don't go over my neck in a crazy way. Trustworthy, I also think, is your training partner shows up all the time. I can think of Joe and his group of guys. They're all getting ready for tournaments and, need training partners. Joe basically shows up and goes with all these younger, animals. He's always there for them. They're always there for him, helping out. I think it even goes beyond the mat. We talked about Joe's buddy who, helped him. I mean, all of Joe's buddies who came over and helped him put drywall in his house after the hurricane, who helped him rebuild his house. I think the trustworthiness goes way off the mat. But I think it's really big on the mat. I know I'm going to walk out of that role and there's still always a chance of injuries, but with a very trustworthy opponent, I'm going to get hurt less.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gary. I think also within the actual rolling, kind of trusting that everybody's going to follow rules of decorum. Is that the term I'm looking for? In other words, if I roll with a black belt that's, a 30-year-old competitor, I'm going to trust that he's going to give me a few chances to work here and there, that he's going to gain nothing from just crushing me, so he's not going to. That's what I'm getting at. I'm going to trust that he's going to do that. And likewise, a white belt that's 20 pounds smaller than me just walked in his first couple months of class. He needs to trust that I'm not going to just crush him. Otherwise, there's nothing in it for either of us. And I think that goes a long ways too. And so with some of my training partners, I've got one guy that I train with in Louisiana. He's blue belt, but man, he's had a few MMA fights. He's tough. We call him Buford, and we have good competitive rolls. And then I watch him roll with the next guy, and I'm thinking, how can I roll competitive with that guy? I'm thinking he must not have been working that hard when I was rolling with him. And the answer obviously is that he wasn't. You know, he knows he can overpower me. He knows he's got some really good, quick, explosive movement, and he just rolls differently with me than he rolls with the guy that's 20 years younger than me. And then my favorite training partner over in Louisiana is Jim Bob, and he's considerably smaller than me. And we kind of have a deal where if he pulls guard and I dominate on top for a couple of minutes, if I can't finish him, I figure out a way to just let the action turn so that then he's got top position. And, you know, if I start just putting him on bottom and crushing him for 5 minutes, he might continue to be my favorite training partner, but I won't be one of his.
So true, Joe.
Yeah, looking at the trustworthy thing, I really enjoy most of the people I train with, but I wouldn't even consider somebody who is injury prone or somebody who didn't care about whether they injured me or not to ever be one of my favorite training partners. Like the two don't go hand in hand. So fortunate enough to train at very safe places, and part of that's the culture. But really, it comes down to individual training sessions and individual roles with people, and training with a bunch of people that you trust is very important. And, you know, if I were to just pick a person for an example to put through this thing, I'll pick one that has the name of, it starts with T. Taylor. I train with Taylor. I try to once a week or so get a roll with him, or if at all possible. And a lot of times we end up rolling after class because we didn't get to match up during class, so we'll stick around and roll one extra round. Tough. He's tough as nails, and that's like for what I could do to him, he could usually endure that. He's very technical. He's always got something up his sleeve. He's always working on something that just throws me off a little bit. From the get-go, he's able to threaten me. Like, just his guard is a dangerous guard to deal with. Like, I have a hard time just passing it. So he pulls guard. I'm having to defend almost right off the bat. And I definitely trust him. He's not going to be one that would injure me. He gives me plenty of time to work to escape a move, and he also gives me time to tap if I need to. So yeah, that's just one person. I just picked him because his name starts with a T. I could probably pick another 25 people that names that don't start with T, maybe a couple that still have a T name. But that's just one person that I really enjoy training with.
Well, since you guys both threw out there, Joe, you threw out Buford and Jim Bob, and Byron, you threw out Taylor. I'm going to throw one out. Mike is my favorite training partner. You know, the guy is built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, looks like a 5'5" professional bodybuilder. And you see somebody like that, I don't know if you would expect a technical round, but, you know, the guy is just very, very technical. And we have some marathon 2-hour rolls. We'll go 2 hours straight and, you know, just have a good time. He pushes me to become so much better. And, you know, I hope that I push him a little bit there too. But it's just fun having great training partners. And like Byron said, I could name, you know, so many more training partners, and they're all not named. And out of all the training partners I could say that fit into this, not one is named Byron.
It's a very rare name. Not very many people named Byron. So just keep trying, Gary. Keep training with people and meeting people, and maybe you'll find one.
Yeah, maybe.
So your Arnold lookalike buddy there, Gary, when his weightlifting and bodybuilding friends ask him what he does for cardio, he probably just says, "I wrestle Gary."
You know, like when I ask him what he's doing for leg day at the gym, he just looks at me and says, "Heel hooks." You know, he's like, squats just don't do it anymore. I do heel hooks.
Awesome.
That's a good leg day. We'll put a link to this article. I like the idea of breaking this down by the 4 T's of
hey,
training partner.
Everybody on our Facebook page, go in there and tag your favorite training partner.
Hey, good one.
Good
Gary.
one. I'll try and remember to put a reminder up when this episode drops.
Another way you could look at this whole thing is, how could you become those things to somebody else?
Oh, I like that, Byron. That's
perfect.
Great.
Yeah, perfect.
So
it's crazy because normally we don't get great ideas like that from Byron, but I love that one.
Well, I do have a great idea. If you want to support the BJJBrick podcast, there's a couple ways to do it. You could tell your friends about it. You could purchase our audiobook that we have for sale. Another way that some supporters have figured out is on Patreon. You can go to Patreon and say this show, the most typical one is like you pitch in $1 per show. And if you think the show is worth $1 per episode, that's great, and we really appreciate that. We will mail you out a 5-inch, or I will mail you out a 5-inch BJJBrick knee patch. If I'm on vacation, it might be a week later. Usually I email, hey, I'll be out for a week or so, but when I get home, I'll send you the thing. But I'll mail you out a 5-inch BJJBrick knee patch and a sticker as just tokens of our appreciation. You're also invited to join our private Facebook group. Just send me an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com with your Facebook profile, and we'll get you added to that if you wish. And we kind of talk a little behind the scenes of what's going on with the BJJBrick crew and who we're having next on the show and that sort of thing. So it's just a way to stay connected with us and to have a little bit of input on the show. And the Patreon thing has been a big help with keeping this podcast going and helping us grow and develop into blossom into this beautiful flower you see before you. Man, that turned bad.
Yeah. I'm not sure what podcast we're listening to now, Byron.
Speaking of blossoming into beautiful flowers, I'd like to thank Gudrun and Jamie for continued support through Patreon. Thank you, ladies, for your support. And it's just it's great to have the Patreon supporters we do. I just want to give a couple of them a shout out. We'll give somebody else a shout out next week.
Yeah, without the Patreon supporters, our podcast just couldn't keep getting stronger. And kind of that, reminds me of a question we got this week. I'll pose it to you guys, but this came from one of our listeners. Will getting stronger help your BJJ? What do you guys think about that?
I think yes and no. I mean, it can be a detriment if you put too high of a priority on it. But if you're going to be a competitor, you got to be fit. So I'm not saying big and strong and to go that route, but I mean, if 280-pound guys go up against each other and one of them's got 18% body fat or something, the strength difference is going to be pretty dramatic, and you just can't get around it, can you guys? That strength matters.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Strength, I think getting stronger will help your BJJ, but I'll put a little caveat, like Joe said, is that you don't base all your training around it. When you're training, work your technique. But then when you need it, throw your strength out. When you're a competitor, throw your strength out. I have seen people who, while they're training, put so much emphasis on strength, just trying to win, that their technique suffers. And you can be very strong, but your technique's not there, and I think that could hurt you. I think you need very good technique and very good strength. And while you're getting that strength, you're not losing your flexibility. You're working on that too, going through full range of motion on all your exercises, stretching, jiu-jitsu always is going to keep you limber. But I think if you combine technique, strength, flexibility, you're going to be an animal. That's a recipe for success.
Yeah. Joe, you have a great point about it. It could, looking at it, will getting stronger help your BJJ. It will help you perform better, like in the heat of the moment. But
perfect. That's a great way to put it, Byron. It'll help you finish moves, but it won't necessarily make you better at them.
If we wrote an article that said how being stronger slowed your jiu-jitsu or hurt your jiu-jitsu, there would be some valid points on that. And they would probably come back more towards your training and your ability to learn the proper technique of your moves, the proper technique of your techniques. And so that's something that is a little bit more under the radar, where somebody who's not as strong, maybe a more slender person, really has to, this isn't working. Okay, let's fix it. Now it still isn't working. What's wrong now? My angle's still a little bit wrong. Okay, now the choke still didn't work. Let's fix your grip. Versus a strong person they got the tap, it worked. But really, when the person's fighting back, it becomes a struggle because their grip is wrong, their angle's not that good, and they shortcut a few things. But it worked okay while they were drilling and trying this sort of thing. But against somebody similar size or similar strength, their technique isn't on point where it needs to be. And so it could be a negative. It's being in better physical shape is always going to be a positive thing, unless you abuse it. Same thing about being like super flexible. If you're used to wrapping your legs around the back of your head and looping in Gary's. Hold on. What's up, Gary? Something weird about that?
Go right ahead.
If you're used to that, I guess is the weird thing about it. But if you're super flexible and then you get injured or you lose that flexibility, jiu-jitsu is going to be very frustrating for you. And same thing with strength. Like, you're not always going to be. You could always be like on the top 10% of strength in your age category, but if you're 25 now and you're super strong, you're not always going to be 25 and super strong. So just to remember to emphasize the technique is important. Strong. That's true. or 75 and super strong. Your strength does kind of leave you at some point in time. But your jiu-jitsu and your technique doesn't really need to leave you if you learn the ones that are good for you over the long haul.
Byron, I really don't know if your strength leaves you. I see a lot of 70-year-old people in the gym, hitting some serious weights. I think if you keep doing it, you're going to be strong. You may not look like you did at 35.
Well, chemically speaking, your body stops producing the chemicals that enable you to be super strong. Now, whether you could put those into your body on a different level or do something like that has a factor too. But just like at a certain time in your athletic career, you start to fade. That's okay. That's being a normal person. And for every guy who's old like that lifting weights, there's probably a giant bench of them who are either injured or when they started to decline a little bit, lost the joy of lifting weights and they just quit altogether.
But, going back to getting stronger, help your BJJ, I think one, you just talked about injuries, but I think one way it helps, having stronger muscles, it's long, you want to keep them flexible too, but I definitely think that helps you with less injuries, keeps you on the mat longer, which I think, it's helped me out, and I think it keep you on the mat, which is going to make your BJJ better also.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I didn't think it would be this clear, like a little up in the air still, but I think it is. It's for me too. Like, I don't know. It really depends on you as a person. Are you going to get on the mat and just rely on your strength as your number one asset? That probably won't help your jiu-jitsu. If you're kind of out of shape and kind of soft, getting stronger, and you really like the art of jiu-jitsu and learning the techniques and exploring that realm, getting stronger is going to help. It'll make those things easier. But as long as it doesn't cloud your vision for jiu-jitsu and you just want to bench press somebody off you all the time or whatever, I don't know, grab head and squeeze.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, I have a feeling that the reason this question was posed to us is because the listener obviously knew that Gary was a part of the podcast.
Yeah.
And Gary's got like
puny arms.
No, Gary's got like a 500-pound squat and a 450 bench, and if anybody would know if being strong would help you jiu-jitsu, it would be Gary.
So now the next person who meets me is going to be like, yeah, that's the guy with the 500-pound squat and the 400-pound bench, and they look at me and start laughing, and they're like, I just saw that guy in the gym struggling with 185 and 135 squatting. So those guys are lying, just so you know.
Yeah, okay. I once told somebody that Gary could bench for something and milk shot out of their nose.
Sure that was milk?
Well, they weren't even drinking milk or eating any cereal, but it was that funny. It was that unbelievable, Gary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. He hides it. Gary's a hidden assassin. And that's Joe's wrestling name, is Hidden Assassin.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, like, if you want to see the Hidden Assassin or the Hammer or Big Bad Byron, you always can check wrestling out or anything out there on the internet, on social media. And also on social media, you can always check out BjjBrick. Joe's always on the social media. We're on YouTube. We're on Reddit. We're on Facebook, Twitter. So check out BjjBrick. Search for it. Like Joe said earlier, let your friends know about it. And if you have any questions, send them to us, bjjbrick@gmail.com.
Gary, if any of our listeners had actually seen me, I wouldn't be the hidden assassin now, would I?
Ooh.
But you're only hidden when you're assassinating people.
Okay.
Maybe you live a dual life, and maybe we could get a hold of Marvel, and that could be the next comic book.
We'll send them an email. That's what we're going to do next week, is send Marvel email. What else is happening next week?
Next week?
If you want it, if the question was posed, is it necessary to be bigger and stronger to be good at jiu-jitsu? A good person to ask would be a successful jiu-jitsu athlete and competitor who was neither of those things. Next week we have Emily Kwok. Emily is originally from Canada. She's running a school up now in the Northeast, Providence, Rhode Island. And she's actually done a series with Stephen Kesting on defeating the bigger and stronger opponent. So catch us next week, and she's going to be dropping some knowledge for y'all.
I will say this about, episode 297 today. It's not episode 257, it's 297. But I personally think we might have had the best segues ever today. Everyone was on point.
I don't know why we've made this a thing, but, if you listen to other podcasts, they just segue. They just say, okay, now let's do the interview. Now let's do the article. And we have really challenged ourselves into making it part of the show is the segue and setting up some alley-oops and putting it on the tee.
Each other. Yeah. It's, we're all trying to get better and, by one-upping the next person. And I think it's kind of fun. I try to get a better segue than those two. And we're not together when we're recording this. Me and Byron are in Wichita on opposite ends of towns, and Joe's way south of us. And so we're not seeing what each other's coming up to, and we're just trying to, just throw a good one out there. And then, let's say Byron throws one out, then me and Joe want to come up with one. And I don't know. Today I thought we were doing well.
I think so, Gary. The best one is always going to be the last one. But doing these segues kind of makes us sweaty. So stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
I stole the last segue.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.